It was an ordinary Sunday morning. I was getting ready to go out with some friends when I decided to grab the money I'd hidden in the third drawer of my room. My heart raced as I pulled out the drawer and saw the empty space where the wooden box used to be. I felt a chill run down my spine. This couldn't be happening. I knelt down and rummaged through every nook and cranny of the drawer, as if the money might magically reappear if I tried hard enough. But nothing. No bills, no coins. Just the smell of old wood and dust. I stood up dizzily, a mixture of anger and panic boiling inside my chest. This was what I had been hoarding for over a year, part of a dream that was now evaporating before my eyes. I went up to my younger sister Ashley's room. She was 17 at the time, and had always been complicated. The door was wide open, and everything was a mess. Clothes were thrown around, the bed was unmade, and there was a strange feeling in the air. I looked in the closet and realized some of her clothes were gone. I went to the bathroom, and her toothbrush was gone too. It was at that moment that her stomach sank. She wasn't home anymore. I considered calling my parents, but then took a deep breath. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe she'd just gone out. But the money, it was too much. The amount was significant. Over $4,000. Money I'd earned washing cars, making deliveries, tending gardens. Every penny was hard-earned. It was a stab, not just in my pocket, but in my heart. I went into the living room and asked my mom if she knew where Ashley was. She replied matter-of-factly. She left early, didn't say where she was going, and she continued washing the dishes as if everything was fine. At that moment, everything inside me began to crumble. Something was very wrong. My sister had taken my money and disappeared, and no one seemed to care. Share this story to reach further, subscribe to the channel, share this video on WhatsApp, and leave a comment telling me where you're listening from. I'll be very happy to read each comment. The first night was unbearable. I couldn't sleep, turning possibilities over in my head, trying to understand what could have driven my own sister to do something like that. The worst part was the feeling of being alone. My parents seemed too calm, as if it were all just a phase, as if she would return at any moment. But she didn't. Not that night, or the next. I tried to access her computer, which was still at home. I discovered she had deleted everything. History, messages, accounts. She had prepared herself. It wasn't impulsive. She planned it. This made the pain even sharper. It was a cold, calculated betrayal. The sister I knew was gone, and in her place was an empty echo. I didn't cry. Not then. I was in shock. At school, everyone started asking about her. I gave automatic answers. She's traveling with a friend. She went to visit her grandmother. Lies. I felt shame, guilt, fear. I didn't want them to know what really happened. And with each passing day, the truth ate away at me. I began to question myself. Had I failed her? Had I been an absent brother? One day, I decided to confront my parents. I sat across from them, my hands shaking, and asked point blank, "You know where she is, right?" My mother looked away. My father was silent. That pause hurt more than any answer. I got up and left the room. I knew in that instant that something much bigger was being hidden, and that my family was involved. The pain became an obsession. I began scouring social media, forums, and missing persons lists. I called her friends, old colleagues. Nothing. No clue. No one knew, or no one wanted to tell me. It was as if she had vanished from the earth, and deep down, I began to accept a terrible thought. Maybe she would never return. It was by chance that I found her old notebook in a box in the basement. It was hidden under a pile of winter clothes. The blue cover was torn, and some pages were missing. But when I opened it, I realized it was hers. Curved letters, scribbled notes, and among it all, small fragments of something much larger. Names, addresses, phone numbers I didn't recognize. Flipping through, I found stray phrases like, "He said he'll help me. I can't live here anymore. I'm going to disappear for good." My eyes burned. Each page took me deeper into a story I didn't know. Ashley was desperate. And now, more than ever, I needed to know who she was running from, or where she was going. It was like putting together a puzzle with missing pieces. I tried calling the numbers in the notebook, but almost all of them were disconnected, except one. A woman answered, and before I could say anything, she said, "She's gone, kid. Forget it." And she hung up. I stood there, staring into space, the phone still to my ear. Who was that woman? How did she know about my sister? Why was everyone hiding the truth from me? That night, I dreamed about Ashley. She was sitting at a train station, staring into space, a small suitcase on her lap. When I tried to approach her, she disappeared into the smoke. I woke in a cold sweat, with the feeling that this dream was more than a daydream. It was a warning. She was trying to tell me something, and I couldn't wait any longer for the truth to fall into my lap. I started writing everything down. Every detail, every name, every phone call. I became a detective in my own home. I gathered everything in a notebook, as if I were writing a movie script, except the pain was real, the fear too, because the more I discovered, the clearer it became that my sister's story involved dangerous people who didn't want to be found. But what scared me most was realizing my parents knew all along. They knew, and they chose to hide the truth from me, maybe to protect me, maybe out of shame, or worse, maybe because they were somehow involved. And that's when I understood. My sister ran away from something most people wouldn't even have the courage to face. My behavior changed. I started skipping school, spending more time locked in my room, obsessing over the tracks. My friends started to drift away. My mother said I was going sick, but I wasn't crazy. I was waking up. For the first time, I was seeing the hole that existed within my family, and how much I had ignored it for years. My father tried to intervene one night. He sat me down and spoke with that calmness that only fuels the anger of someone trying to scream for help. "You need to stop this. She's made a decision. She's an adult now." I screamed. I asked if he knew she'd stolen the money. He embezzled it. I asked if he knew where she was. He remained silent. That destroyed me more than any fight could have. Days passed, and I felt increasingly isolated, as if screaming inside a soundproof room. I even considered reporting my sister as an official disappearance, but without evidence, without my parents' support, the police wouldn't do anything. To them, she was just a rebellious teenager who decided to leave home. To me, she was a sister kidnapped by fate itself. I started writing her letters. Every night before bed, I wrote as if she could still read. I told her what had happened that day, reminisced about my memories, and asked if she was okay. I kept them all in a box, along with her notebook. It was the only way I could feel that there was still an invisible thread between us, that she was still real, that I wasn't just feeding an illusion. There was a moment when I thought about giving up, throwing everything away, burning the notebook, trying to forget. But every time I saw that empty space in the drawer, every time I felt my parents' strange silence, something inside me was rekindled. I needed to keep going. I needed to know why. Why she did that to me. Why she disappeared. Why no one talked about her as if she still existed. It was at this point that anger began to take over. I no longer wanted answers. I wanted confrontation. I wanted to make someone pay for this silence. I wanted to break the lies, even if it was by force. And it was this fury that took me to a place I never imagined I would visit. I remembered a place Ashley used to go when she needed to escape the world. An old park on the outskirts of town, half forgotten, surrounded by gnarled trees and broken benches. I grabbed my bike and rode there on a cloudy afternoon, the cold wind biting my face, as if even the weather knew something heavy was about to happen. I didn't know what to expect. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. The park was empty, silent. I sat on the bench in front of the old, broken-down carousel where we used to play as children. I touched the rusty seat with my fingertips, trying to feel for any trace of her there. Nothing, but there was something strange. A folded cardboard box, partially hidden under the bench. I pulled it out slowly, my heart racing, and inside I found something that made me freeze. It was a photo of me and her, taken on Christmas 2018. We were smiling. Next to it, a handwritten note. "Sorry, but I need this more than you do." My stomach turned. She'd been there, maybe recently, maybe waiting for me to find her. Or maybe she just wanted to leave a trail, like throwing a bottle into the ocean hoping someone would read it. I held the note tightly. It wasn't a goodbye. It was a cry for help in disguise. I returned home with my heart racing. I repeated every word of the note in my mind dozens of times. I need this more than you do. Was it about the money or freedom? What exactly did she need so badly? I began to understand that maybe this wasn't just an act of rebellion. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe she was trying to escape something that even I didn't yet have the courage to see. That night, I stared at the photo until I fell asleep, and I dreamed of her again. Only this time she was crying. I woke with tears in my eyes and a lump in my throat. The message was clear. She was alive, but still running, and I needed to find her before it was too late. before the world erased what was left of her forever. The next morning, I sat down with my parents and placed the note and photo on the table. The reaction was immediate. My mother paled. My father clenched his fists. The silence lasted so long I almost screamed. "She's alive! She left this in the park," I said, my voice trembling. My mother began to cry. My father just shook his head, as if I had done something terrible. That's when he stood up, grabbed the note and the photo, and tore them up right in front of me. The pieces fell like dead feathers onto the table. I jumped up, screaming, feeling a rage I'd never felt before. "You're hiding her," I screamed. My mother tried to calm me down, but I couldn't hear anything anymore. It was like a dam had burst inside me. "You don't understand. You can't understand." That was all my father said before he left the room. My mother stood there, trembling. I knelt down to pick up the pieces of the photo, as if I could glue my sister back together. But there, on that cold floor, I understood something. They knew more than they were willing to admit, and they would do anything to keep it a secret, even destroy what was left of her. I left home that day without looking back. I spent hours wandering aimlessly around the city. The feeling of abandonment was as strong as the night I realized she was gone. But now, something was different. A cruel certainty. My family had been broken long before Ashley ran away. Only now was I seeing the cracks, and they were growing wider. At the end of that day, I sat on the roof of the old school where we'd studied together. I stared at the horizon as the sun set, and I promised myself, I won't stop. Not even if the whole world tries to silence me. Not even if my own family turns against me. I will find the truth, and I will bring my sister back, even if it's just what's left of her. I returned to Ashley's notebook, rereading every word, every symbol, every name. One in particular caught my eye. J, back store, Maple Ave. That was it. No last name, no details, but it was the first concrete clue since the note. I took a bus to Maple Avenue, a rundown street in the city where almost every store was closed or out of business, the kind of place where no one asks too many questions. I walked along the dirty sidewalk, peering at every door, until I saw a crooked sign hanging. Used electronics. Open. I entered, the doorbell dinging. The smell was of mildew, stale tobacco, and burnt metal. A large man with a buzzed head stared at me from the counter. "What are you looking for?" he asked, his eyes never leaving mine. I froze for a second, then replied, "I'm looking for Jay." His expression changed. Tension hung in the air. He turned, knocked on the back door, and muttered something. A few seconds later, a thin man in his 30s appeared. Black shirt, tattoos on his neck, and eyes red as if he hadn't slept in days. "Are you Ashley's brother?" he asked bluntly. My heart nearly stopped. I nodded, unable to say anything. He stared at me for what seemed like an eternity. "I think we need to talk." Jay led me to the back of the store, where there was a cramped little room with a table, 2 iron stools, and a broken camera hanging in the corner. He lit a cigarette and started talking. She was a smart girl, hurt, but smart. She came to me saying she needed to disappear, that she didn't trust anyone. Not her parents, not you. That hurt, but I needed to hear it. He continued. "I gave her shelter, for a while, but she was scared. She said someone was after her. I don't know who. All I know is that she left after 2 weeks. She left a backpack and a note. If my brother shows up, give this to him." Jay stood up, opened a drawer, and handed me a crumpled envelope with my name on it. My hands shook as I touched it. It was the first tangible thing she'd given him in 4 years. I left the store with the envelope clutched tightly to my chest. I didn't open it there. I wanted to do it somewhere alone, where I could hear her voice in my head without the noise of the world around me. I walked to the same park as before. I sat on the same bench, and I opened the envelope. The handwriting was hers, but shaky, as if she'd written in a hurry or in fear. "If you're reading this, it's because you came after me, and I knew you would. You were always stubborn. You were always my hero, even when I pretended to hate you." My eyes filled with tears. That first line had already broken me inside. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but I kept reading. I ran away, because I couldn't stand living surrounded by lies anymore. Mom and Dad pretend to be good parents, but you know what goes on in that house. You know, and I knew. The fights, the silences, the secrets hidden behind locked doors. I always knew, but I never spoke. Because in our family, pain was swept under the rug, and the rug no longer covered anything. I found out things about Dad, things I can't write here, But he lied to everyone. He's dangerous, and Mom protects him. That's why I couldn't stay. That's why I had to take the money. It wasn't just for me. It was to save me. I reread that part about 10 times. Every word seemed to spit out a truth I'd refused to see for years. My dad, dangerous? Don't try to find me. At least not now. If they find out you know, they'll turn on you too. But if you ever find out everything, maybe then we can see each other again. Until then, don't trust them. The letter ended with a drawing. 2 stick figures, holding hands, like the ones we used to make when we were little. I felt a lump in my throat so strong I could barely breathe. I closed the letter with trembling hands. The whole world seemed to spin around me. I could no longer ignore it. She hadn't run away on a whim. She'd run away because she was in danger, and maybe I was too. I got up from the bench with a new purpose, to find out what exactly my father had hidden from us, and what had made my sister run as if her life depended on it. Because now I knew. The truth was darker than I could ever imagine. I entered the house as if I were treading on enemy territory. The envelope with Ashley's letter was hidden in the inside pocket of my jacket, but it felt like it was burning my skin. I walked through the living room and saw my father watching TV as if the world hadn't fallen apart. My mother was in the kitchen, stirring a pot, as if she weren't trapped in a theater of lies. The air was heavy, but this time I wasn't going to swallow the silence. I approached my father and stood in front of the television. "We need to talk. Now," I said, my voice firm. He looked at me with contempt disguised as weariness. "Not now," he replied, returning his gaze to the screen. I walked to the outlet and pulled the cord. The TV went dark, but the hatred in his eyes flared. "What are you doing?" he growled. I didn't flinch. "I want to know the truth, all of it." I showed him the envelope. I told him I'd been with Jay, that I'd read the letter. He stood up slowly, his eyes fixed on me. "You don't know what you're messing with, kid," he said, as if I were stepping into a minefield. "Then explain to me. Explain why your daughter ran away in fear of you. Explain why she called you dangerous." I spat the words without hesitation. My mother dropped the spoon on the floor. He advanced. For the first time, I thought he was going to hit me. The old violent reflex I'd seen in his eyes as a child was back. But he stopped inches from me. His look was that of someone cornered. "You want to know? Then listen. But after this, there's no going back," he said quietly. I didn't respond. I just sat on the couch, waiting for all hell to break loose. And that's what happened. With every word, with every pause, I realized my family was far more rotten than I'd imagined. He began to tell a story, and my life began to crumble again, only this time with every detail explicit. The truth had finally begun to come out, and it wasn't pretty. It was dirty, heavy, and impossible to forget. He said that years ago, he had problems with the wrong people who demanded violent payments, who made threats. He had debts. He was gambling secretly. He was involved in illegal schemes. My mother knew. And Ashley, she found out by accident, after overhearing a phone conversation he had with one of the loan sharks. She heard everything behind the door. She was only 13. Since then, she's lived in fear in her own home. She threatened to tell the police, he said, his eyes downcast. I swore I'd change, but she didn't believe me, and one day she disappeared. I asked if he'd done anything to her. He swore he hadn't, but that wasn't what hurt. The worst part was knowing he'd put us all in danger out of greed, and yet he tried to bury it as if it were an ordinary mistake. A slip-up. Ashley saw more than she should have, and she paid the price. They started coming after me. I thought she'd told someone. They started swarming the house, following you, threatening you, she said, her voice low. She ran away to protect us. I wanted to explode, because he didn't protect us. She was the one who had to do it, alone, a teenager, afraid, and he still had the audacity to live as if nothing had happened. My mother confirmed everything, crying. She said she thought Ashley would come back, that one day everything would work itself out. We thought it was just a phase. How could a mother think that? As if a daughter running away for fear of dying was something temporary, fleeting. I was disgusted. I couldn't look at them the same way anymore. The house wasn't home anymore. It was a prison of twisted memories. I ran away. I ran as if I could escape it all. But you don't run from a truth like that. It runs with you. It entered my head, my chest, my bones. My sister ran from a monster who shared my dinner table. And yet, she still left a letter. She still believed I could find her. Now, I needed to prove her right. I couldn't go home anymore. I spent days sleeping at a friend's house, my head spinning. What my father had told me was just the surface. I needed to understand what he really did, who he was involved with, who these dangerous guys were. I started combing through public records, obscure forums, and even police databases. It was difficult, but each little discovery pulled me deeper into the hole. I discovered he'd been questioned years ago in a money laundering case linked to a shell company. Nothing was proven, but his name appeared in the reports, hidden among aliases and fronts. I found addresses linked to him that I'd never known, businesses in third-party names, blank checks, and, strangest of all, transfers to an account bearing the name of a woman Ashley had mentioned in the notebook, Marla. I tracked this woman down. It took me days to find anything, until, on a forum about missing persons, I found an old post with her photo, a middle-aged woman with striking eyes and a cold expression. Comments said she was a mediator in dirty deals, people who laundered, threatened, even transported teenagers. My stomach turned. Ashley knew this woman. So did my father, and I already knew what that meant. I didn't want to believe it, but everything pointed to something even darker, human trafficking. Not in the sense we see in movies, with mobsters in basements, but in the form of favors, deals, payments to vulnerable people. I trembled. What if my sister was being hunted by this woman? What if my father's debt involved more than money? A favor, a surrender, a sacrifice. It became an obsession. I wrote everything down, drew maps, connected names and dates. Pain turned to fury. Longing became a weapon. My sister wasn't just any fugitive. She was a survivor. And my father's filth, that silent mud, could have swallowed her whole life. I couldn't let that happen again. I couldn't let the silence kill again. It was at that point that I decided to risk everything. I was going after this Marla, even if it cost me dearly. If she knew where Ashley was, or what had happened to her, I would find out. And this time, no one would stop me. Not fear, not my blood, not the dirty past that carried my name. I found her address in one of the transfers I managed to track. It was a simple house in a neighborhood forgotten by the city, the kind of place where nothing seems wrong, but everything is. I arrived with sweaty hands, my sister's letter in my pocket, and my heart pounding like it was going to explode. I rang the doorbell. 1, 2 minutes. Then the door opened. She looked at me. I knew who I was, and she let me in without a word. We sat in silence. She lit a cigarette, watching me. "You're her brother," she said, as if speaking of a legend. I nodded. She took a drag and continued. "I thought you'd show up sooner or later." Her voice was hoarse, tired. "She talked about you a lot. She said you were the only good thing left. That tore me apart, and at the same time it gave me strength. I want to know where she is," she said bluntly. Marla exhaled slowly. "If I tell you, your life will change forever," she replied. I stared at her intently. My life has already changed. Now I just want the truth. She was silent for a moment, then spoke as if opening an old wound. "Your father owed us a lot of money. Ashley heard everything, and before he was forced to pay with his own daughter, she ran away, disappeared, alone." The silence afterward was deafening. She wasn't being held captive. She hadn't been sold. She'd escaped before, but she'd been hunted ever since. She's a ghost now, intelligent, elusive. Even we couldn't find her. "All I know is she's alive," Marla said, stubbing out her cigarette. "She's become someone who learned to survive on her own. You don't need to save her. You need to understand why she never came back." That last sentence kept hammering in my head. I left with the truth in my hands, but an even bigger hole in my chest. My sister had conquered the darkness, but at the cost of disappearing from the world. I knew now that she was alive and free, but something inside her had also died, and perhaps she would never return, not because she couldn't, but because she no longer wanted to. I walked back to the city center. The sky was cloudy, the wind was biting, but inside me, a flame was burning. I would no longer search for her like someone searching for a lost child. I would honor who she had become, and if she ever decided to look for me, I would be here, firm, standing, and clean of the mud that nearly drowned us. 4 long years passed. Life went on, but nothing filled the void. I kept everything of hers. Letters, photos, her notebook. I never lost hope, but I learned to live with her absence. Until, one ordinary morning, I received a message. It was from an unknown number. It just said, "I'm okay. Thank you for never giving up." My heart nearly stopped. I reread it 100 times, trying to believe it. It was her, Ashley, alive, aware of everything and remembering me. I replied immediately, tears in my eyes. "Where are you? Can I see you?" But she didn't respond, at least not right away. Hours later, another message. "Not yet, but now you know. I'm here." Short, to the point, but full of life. I froze. All I wanted was to see her, to hold her, to tell her that nothing else mattered. But I understood. She was still rebuilding herself, and maybe she needed to do it in her own time. No rush, no pressure. Since then, I've kept the same number. I've never changed. I text her occasionally. Sometimes she responds with emojis, sometimes with silence. But she's alive, and that's enough. For now, that's all I need. And even without her here, close by, I carry her strength within me. She survived, and she taught me how to survive too. I spent years hating my father, distancing myself from my mother, beating myself up for not doing more. But now I understand. Each person did what they could with the pain they felt. That doesn't justify it, but it explains it, and that freed me. My father eventually moved away. He lives alone, in silence. We never talk about it again. My mother tries to get closer. Sometimes I let her in, sometimes I don't. Not out of revenge, but because my peace now comes first. I learned to forgive without forgetting, to move forward without erasing what hurt me. And most of all, I learned to love my sister for who she is now, free, strong, and even from afar, present in everything I do. She became a symbol of courage to me. Every time I think about giving up, I remember she had to choose between disappearing or dying inside, and she chose to live, even alone, even without guarantees. That's heroism. If she ever shows up at my door, she'll be welcome. But if she never does, that'll be okay too, because I know she's alive, she's free, and she's found her own path. And this is more than any happy ending. It's real, it's strong, and it's hers. If there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's that not every escape is cowardice. Sometimes disappearing is the only way to stay alive, to breathe, to start over. My sister didn't betray anyone. She saved herself. And even if I never see her again, she won. How many people live this in silence? How many Ashleys are there out there, trying to escape burdensome pasts, suffocating families, stories no one would believe? If you're one of them, know this: I believe in you, and you're not alone. Today, I carry this story like a scar. It doesn't go away, but it reminds me of what I faced, of what my sister faced, and that we're still here, standing, speaking out, surviving. And that's more than many people have achieved. I don't tell you this to cause pity. I tell you this to show that even in the most broken stories, there's still love, there's still struggle, there's still chance. Life isn't about perfect endings. It's about real new beginnings. Ashley, if you're watching this, thank you for teaching me courage, for trusting me, even from afar, and for showing me that freedom has a price, but it's worth every step. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Comment here where you're listening from. Send it on WhatsApp, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell. Every comment here strengthens me and reminds me that the truth is worth telling. Until the next video, and remember, those who love, listen, even in silence.